Okay, Wang, we are going to begin now. Good morning, everybody. We're ready to begin our conference of today. First, I will introduce briefly Professor Wang Zhengxu. Professor Wang Zhengxu is he's a professor in the Department of Political Science, School of International Relations and Public Affairs at Fudan University. He has been before Associate Professor of the School of Contemporary Chinese Studies at the University of Nottingham. Before, he was also a senior researcher in the China Policy Institute, the School of Contemporary Chinese Studies at the University of Nottingham, and also he has been a research fellow at the East Asian Institute of National University of Singapore. He got his PhD in political science and higher education in the University of Michigan. Also, he got a Master of Art degree in the University of Alabama. He studied his bachelor's degree in Renmin University in China. Professor Wang Zhengxu is a very well-known scholar in Fudan University in China, and I have read his articles. Of course, he has written several books, but I regularly read his articles in South China Morning Post, one of the most important newspapers in East Asia. And also, I am very happy to have Professor Wang Zhengxu because he's from Fudan University, and Fudan University in the year 2018, they created a Latin America University Consortium, where there is Fudan University, was one of the most important universities in China, and 13 of the most important universities in Latin America, and San Marcos National University is also a member of that. Professor Wang Zhengxu, he will give a talk about the theme of China political system, responding to giant crisis, and we'll have some comments later after Professor Wang Zhengxu talk of Ambassador Juan Carlos Capuñay and Juan Diego Zamudio, both of whom are members of the Center of Asian Studies of San Marcos National University. This is the first conference that we're presenting in October. The Center of Asian Studies was created 2 years ago, and we are conducting a series of conferences. And really, we're happy to have in this opportunity Professor Wang Zhengxu here. Are you ready, Professor Wang Zhengxu?
Yes, thank
okay.
you, Carlos. Let me try to turn on the screen, my PowerPoint. But when I just did that, I was disconnected for 2 or 3 seconds. So I don't know whether now I tried again. Hopefully it will work. But before that, let me say buenos días. Y a mí me gusta mucho. Me gusta mucho hablar con mis amigos de Perú. It was great. I had a wonderful trip to San Marcos University 2 years ago, I believe. And I certainly hope we can continue with the Fudan Latin American University Consortium. And by the way, congratulations to Center for Asian Studies of San Marcos. It was announced when we were there, so we are very happy, and we will get to support your center as much as possible. Now, let me try to turn on my PowerPoint. Okay, now you can see my PowerPoint.
Yes, clearly.
Okay, good. Thank you, Professor Aquino. You mentioned you actually read my articles in the South China Morning Post. I'm very flattered. That means I should keep on writing because sometimes when I write, I'm not sure whether people really read those papers at all. But because you tell me now, so I will keep doing that. I don't write very often, maybe once every, maybe 3 or 4 times a year, or maybe even less than. But when I have something I want to say, I try to write and send it to some papers. I will try to, actually, I want to publish some newspaper articles with Peruvian or Latin American newspapers, so we'll try that. Okay, so my topic is to discuss China's political system and how the Chinese political system responds to a major crisis when the country faces big crises. How does the system respond to crises? And I'll use the this is my content. I will first explain how the Chinese political system is designed to work, and especially how it is organized and how does it operate. And then I'll show in general how does it respond to crises. And I use the COVID-19 as an example, as a more concrete example. Then I will conclude. So later on, you will see some pictures, but most of this time, in the first few slides, you will not see many photos or pictures. There will be a lot of text, a lot of words, ideas, concepts. But let's try. Okay. When I returned to China several years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I start to realize, many Western, especially European, American scholars, journalists, reporters, they see China as an anomaly. As an anomaly in terms, it is not is against the normal idea that a modern country needs to have marketization and so-called democratization. I start to realize China is seen as abnormal because the definition of democracy is very narrowly constructed by the Western theorists. So what I have tried to do is try to build new conceptual frameworks to allow us to think about political systems other than using the term democracy or non-democracy. So today I will show when we try to understand a political system, we should not, when you talk about democracy, people always talk about election, about parliament or Congress, and I would say, actually, these are the less important institutions. The more important institutions of a political system are in the ideational level. I think we have to first understand, really, for a political system to work, what are the fundamental beliefs? What are the fundamental values? You can call this ideology, or in the American terminology, you can call this the constitutional rules. In traditional China, in the Chinese history, it's really the idea of Confucianism, a very general philosophical value system that's more important than whether you do election or whether you have one party. Okay, then below these very fundamental values, you have some very general principles. General principles regarding what should the government do, how we organize government, or what's the relation between government and the society, and so on. Beyond this, we can talk about what I call the operational institutions. That's really the mechanics, how to organize the political activities. So that include electoral institutions, representational institutions, and deliberation, decision-making, policy-making, implementation, and so on. This is the narrow definition of the government, the state and the government, or the government system, or the governance system. And like I said, these are really operational. We often forget the more important things are here, or the more fundamental things are here. And then below these operational rules, there are lower level institutions, and I call them techniques, such as how do you manage your citizens' identification using a passport? How do you monitor people's banking information, so that, for example, if I'm a government official, I have to disclose my income. Those I call them techniques, very technical, very basic level of institutions. So with that, let me try to say how different we think Chinese political system or Chinese understanding of political values are different from a typical liberal democracy. Liberal democracy is good, it's great. I agree. So if you want to understand the legitimization, the fundamental values of liberal democracy, it is about people's rule, about government power belongs to the people. So this fundamental value, I think every modern country support it. Then in terms of the general rules, general political principles or political theories, liberal democracy is about people's rights, about civil rights, about liberty, about accountable government, about representation, about transparency in government, clean government, about government limited power to government. It's about rule of law. So these rules are what liberal democracy is about. Then below this, how do you operationalize these rules? You have elections, you have parliament. So you call this the Westminster way of democracy. When you have a Congress system, you have the American way of democracy, and so on. But liberal democracy is not everything. There are many values, many political principles that liberal democracy does not emphasize. Yeah, liberal democracy does not talk about state capacity. It does not talk about unity of the political community, because it believes really the individual's right, individual groups' right. It believes that political community will be well off if everybody is well off. And liberal democracy does not talk about social economic development. It does not talk about state responsibility. The state should be as small as possible. The state should not be given the responsibility to take care of people, in a sense. So when you talk about responsibility, it becomes a socialist idea. It's the socialist idea that argue state should have the responsibility to look after the citizens. Okay, and liberal democracy does not talk about moral strength of the officials. It believes that everybody is equal in front of the law, and everybody should not be obliged by certain moral standards. And liberal democracy is not about meritocracy. It is about election. It is about people gain position by competition of votes, where people do not get promotion, or government officials do not get promotion because you are judged as a competent, as a capable manager, and it is completely, liberal democracy is completely against hierarchy. Although there are hierarchies everywhere, but liberal democracy does not think it is legitimate. Liberal democracy just shy away from any kind of hierarchy. And of course, liberal democracy does not emphasize leadership party. Parties are just to represent people's interests. Parties are not meant to lead the whole society. And liberal democracy is not about state society synergy. We always believe that the state and society are separate, and society and state are in a sense always in confrontation. The social forces should always keep the state under control, or something like that. Yeah, and I probably won't talk about this, but liberal democracy, in every country you have interest group politics, but liberal democracy is actually against interest group politics. It's just like in the United States, very typical. The democracy of people actually is turned into, decay into politics of interest groups. The interest groups actually hijacked people's power. Yeah, so interest group is bad. It's bad everywhere, but it is very prominent in democracy in America, in European countries, but it is not the principle of liberal democracy. So I am just to show, we take it for granted that democracy or liberal democracy is the best kind of government, or is the only correct way of government. But if we look carefully, there are so many important things that liberal democracy does not emphasize. So what about China? There are ideas of democracy in China. There are beliefs that government should be for the people. So I call China, in terms of the ideational, in the Chinese political system, the ideational components, I call it China a socialist people's republic. That it's very important to emphasize socialist ideas, socialist ideals, and it is about, and these ideas are about unity, about common welfare, about a strong state that can deliver, and it is about very, very heavy state responsibilities in terms of poverty, in terms of environmental problems, everything the state has the responsibility. And there are very strong democracy ideas, and it is about people. It is established as a people's republic. So officially, constitutionally, the sovereignty is with the people, and this is unique. This is from Chinese traditional beliefs that so-called government is rooted, or is from the people, called the Minben. Yeah, we just use this Chinese term Minben as Minbenism, people rootsness. And it is this is Confucian. It's very meritocratic. The belief that meritocracy, people think meritocracy, the negative side is it is hierarchical. There are different ranks of responsibility, different ranks of positions. You have to move up by performance. If you show your ability through your performance, you are moved up to take up more important positions. But on the other hand, I think it's also a democratic idea that because of meritocracy, and people of any background, a commoner, people of any background can move up through your performance. You can move up even if you're from a very low class. If you excel in school, if you excel in your work, you have the road is, the path is open for you to move up to leadership of prestigious positions, and you will acquire more social responsibilities. People of higher position take up more responsibilities. So the Chinese government, the current the Chinese Communist Party, call its own government the government of the people, from the people, in the people, and for the people. So some of you probably know this scholar in Taiwan. His name is Yunhan Chu, C-H-U, Chu. And he always say, if you say China doesn't have direct election, so it is not a government by the people, but at least it's very clear it's a government for the people. And then Carlos, because you read my South China Morning Post article, you know what I said, the party is together in the people. So, and then there are very strong ideas of republicanism. This term republicanism is very vague, but in Chinese the term 共和 really means we are together. We are so it's about, like say, it's about inclusiveness. It's about ethnical harmony, ethnical integration, and so on. So how do we know this? How do we know the Chinese political values? You have to interpret the government policies, government documents, and the general political discussion in China. So to be these slides will lead to my later discussion of the responses to crisis. It's that in terms of the ideational objectives for Chinese government or Chinese politics, it's very heavy on the state. You need state capacity, and the state has very heavy responsibilities. And it is very, it emphasizes unity of the political community. So any divisive actions should be avoided, should be suppressed. And then the government has very strong responsibility in socio-economic development, because only by delivering socio-economic development can you improve people's living standard. And it is about leadership party, but the party is very different from electoral party in the West, in Latin America. And it is about state society synergy. Many projects are undertaken together between the state and the society. Now, operationally, this part, I think more people know about this part, about, there's a party, and the party has many, has its organizational charts, and so on. So let me say the party is the most important political institution in China. It is a large party, 90 million members, but it is a small party given China's 1.4 billion population. So it's rather small. Only a small percentage of people are in the party. And the party has its organizational institutions. It has a 5-year party congress, which elects the central committee. And when the central committee is not in session, it's the Politburo, and the Politburo standing committee that runs the party and runs the country. And you have different party departments, and then every region, in terms of the province, in terms of the cities, counties, township, every region has a similar party structure. And then in government ministries, in bureaus, in companies and universities, you have the party organization. If you have been to Shanghai, you know what this is. Yeah, this is the the site where the party had its first Congress, 1921. So because the party's leadership, and this is something Western political science does not understand, I call the system a party-led constitutionalism, because there is a constitution, and the party the party takes the constitution seriously. The party can revise the constitution, but once it is set, the party operate within the constitution. But still, the Chinese Communist Party is the most important institution, and you have a National People's Congress system. You have the government, the State Council, or the State Council, which is the cabinet in the Western terminology, and the People's Congress. Both are under the party's leadership, and you have a provincial system. This is important because a provincial system is different from a federalist state, and I'll talk more about this. So the official phrase China uses is called People's Democratic Dictatorship. This is very hard to make sense, but just I use this term, party-led constitutionalism. These are some sites in Beijing. That's Zhongnanhai. This is where the Zhongnanhai is where the party center and the state council is, and that's the map inside Zhongnanhai. This is the gate you just saw. Yeah, this entrance is here from the southern entrance. Once you enter this compound, it's separated into the middle sea, the Zhonghai, and the South Sea, and the party center is at the South Sea, and the state council, the government state council is in the middle sea, and that's where you see from the air, from the air. Another major element in the operational system of China is the so-called line block dual governance design. Li Butho, this very famous China scholar in America, he didn't call this because this Tiao and Kuai line block structure is quite well known in China, but it was less known in the English world. So he basically explained this to the Western literature by calling it the Tiao and Kuai system, meaning in any government agency, any party agency in China is subject to two lines of control, two lines of authority. You are subject to the direction or control of the upper level government, and you are subject to control by the government of the same level. So the control from Beijing to down, that's called the line control, is functional. For example, any bureau, any provincial bureau, or like we are in Shanghai, if the Shanghai any government bureau of Shanghai is subject to control by the Shanghai municipal government and by the central government in Beijing. This is probably quite unique. There are some vertical. There are some area of government that's only controlled vertically, such as the central bank, banking system, food and drug safety. Those regulations are subject only to the central government, but most of government functions are subject to dual control. So the Shanghai Bureau of Environment is subject to the control of Ministry of Environment in Beijing, and also subject control to the Shanghai municipal government. So it's the party state, the party and the government system that ensure you have a vertical integration, a national integration of all the regions, of all the local level government. So let me quickly talk about the regions or blocks in China. Here you see a map that China has 30 plus, 35, 36 provincial level agencies. And then within each province, there are municipals or prefectures, and under municipalities and prefectures, you have counties, and below counties, you have township and so on. The regional government, the regional party state, let's say, the regional party and government is responsible for maintaining local affairs. It does things within the larger, if you are a provincial government, you manage your local affairs within the national context. If you are a municipal government, you manage your city within the provincial context. But every region, every area has differences in terms of capacities and the local constraints. How able are you to implement something, to develop something? It's different across places. Then maybe one thing people, if you read literature, many people are aware of this. Many policy innovations took place first in some place, and then it can spread to other places. This way, because you have a large country, different places, different innovations can emerge, and the better ones will be adopted by other places or by the national government. And if the local government finds difficulty in meeting certain demands, if there's a major issue the local government cannot deal with, the local government can always fall back to the upper level government. So if, like, we live in Yangpu district in Shanghai, if the Yangpu district government cannot deal with a certain issue, it will go to the Shanghai municipal government. And if the Shanghai government cannot deal with this issue in Shanghai, it can go to the central government for help. Okay, so this is very important when we have a crisis situation. Okay, so when you have a crisis, they emerge locally. It happens in one place or a few places. But the local government, sometimes it can quickly deal with the crisis. Or if the local government is unable to deal with that, or if the crisis is too big, is too severe, the local government often fail to deal with that, then the local government will come in to help. So this one is very important. If the crisis threatens to escalate, the upper government will always come in. And then when you have the upper government come in, the government can mobilize and can commit more resources, more capacity, until it gets to the central government level. If the crisis become too big, eventually the central government has to come in. So what would be the giant crisis or a giant event? I define giant event or giant crisis as happenings that require the national government, the party-led national government, to directly manage. So once a crisis becomes a national crisis, beyond giant crisis, the national government will directly take over. It will, at that time, the local government, the provincial government becomes supporting. It only supports the national government to deal with this issue. So this includes events such as the 2008 Olympics, because it is a very big event. It was actually the national government, although it was hosted in Beijing, it was organized and managed by the national government. And the 2010 World Expo, and gigantic projects, major, very large projects that require the central government to directly manage. And disaster relief, we will see the flood in 1998, and then large earthquake. This will be crisis that the government, national government, will directly come in. So whether it is considered a giant or not, it depends on the polity or the country's ideational sources, belief system. Okay, so when the central government decides this is a giant crisis, the central government and the party center will come into lead. Oftentimes is the president, the general party secretary, that directly leads the response. And then they always dispatch a very important national leader, maybe a premier, maybe a vice premier, maybe a Politburo member at the site. And then there will be forceful measures. Oftentimes the armed forces are mobilized. Then you have very rapid construction of hospitals and needed facilities. And then other provinces will be mobilized to support, to chip in resources. And then mobilization across sectors in terms of food supply, in terms of equipment manufacture, in terms of many sectors will be mobilized. And then social forces will join. Volunteers or social groups, and so on. And also this include, media information management that will be managed under the party's leadership. So here are some photos, as I promised. This was from the 1998 flood. It was a very big flood. So Yangtze River, many provinces in the Yangtze near Yangtze River were affected. This was 1998. At that time, the country, in terms of the capacity, in terms of equipment, in terms of engineering capacity, was still quite meager. Yeah, they had to rely on human physical power to fight the flood. So building these dams, building these docks was very hard. And that's what I mean. The national government, the national leader, President Jiang Zemin, he was on site. He was on site many times. And then that's the premier. He was on site many times. And then there was a major earthquake in 2008. And you also have a national response. The party leader, the premier was there for many days. And then military troops were mobilized. Now, COVID-19 is a very typical example. Then this was the timeline. Cases start to emerge in December, and for some time it was unclear how severe it was. Whether how deadly it was unclear. But by mid-January, by January 17, now the central government has the information, has the complete information that this is very serious, and things are already quite bad on the ground in Wuhan city. So the central government, central leadership on that day decide this is a giant problem. This needs a national-led response, and very quickly very big measures were taken. Wuhan was locked down. This is 20 million population city. At that time, everybody was ready to travel home for Chinese New Year, and then governments announced that no one can leave. So you have to have a very strong government, very forceful measures to make sure this really happens. And then very large amount of financial resources and local leadership were replaced. And then every other province, it was the time I went back to my hometown to spend Chinese New Year with my family, with my parents. And then everyone, by late mid-January, every place was locked down. So for, let's say, for 14 days, no one can leave your neighborhood even. And then you have a lot of interagency, inter-province efforts that mobilize medical, engineering, logistics capacities, and manufacturing. Yeah, the medical supplies, living goods supplies. They have to be manufactured and delivered to Wuhan and to every place. So this example was better known that very quickly 2 hospitals were built, and then you have large number of medical teams coming from other provinces, from Shanghai, from my hometown. Every province sends medical teams to Hubei province, and it is. You need a coordinated effort across sectors in terms of shutting down business. And if you shut down business, how do you compensate the business? You want enough medical supplies. Where do you manufacture them? How to acquire and distribute to people? And if you want to close school, you go online. Do you have the right resources? Do you have the right teaching staff and so on? And then border control. By March, it was already very clear that the importation, there will be the danger of infected people coming into China become very big. So how do you control quarantine the travelers from when they come into China? And so I am almost close to end. These are just some photos showing the idea that it's a coordinated effort. You need a strong government, but also very nimble government, very very able to manage the balance and to ensure coordination across sectors. One thing I want to specifically talk about, and I know Peru, you are still having a big wave. Basically, every country, the European countries now have a second wave. How can we put down this disease? I think in the Chinese experience, in the Chinese case, this thing called the shelter hospital, Fangchang Shelter Hospital, was the game changer. I recommend people to study this thing called the shelter hospital. The idea is if you need large capacity of hospital beds, but you only need very basic medical condition. They are called Fangchang in Chinese, Fangchang Shelter Hospital, or mobile cabin hospital. They are set up normally in a stadium, in gymnastics, in exhibition halls, and so on. But because a lot of people, most infected people, they have light symptoms. They can recover quite easily if you give just very basic support to them. But if they are left at home or left at large, they will spread. So what Wuhan did, what China did was they built this kind of large hospitals to collect everyone. Infected person will be given a slot, given a bed in this kind of hospital. They do not need separate rooms or separate space because they're all infected patients. They do not need to be separate from each other. And this kind of hospital, they need less, very basic medical support. But if you collect them into this kind of hospital, you cut off the patient-to-people contact. That's the most effective way. But you really need large number. You really need large capacity. So that's there are some very useful, very important, but straightforward technical information you can find in various publications, and that's what I mean. You need large capacities. This was in Wuhan during those days by setting up shelter hospital with beds in the thousands, in the hundreds and thousands in Wuhan. That way you can collect as many as the infected people. So if you look at this chart, that was February 6th. That was the every day start to admit into Fudan hospital. Then gradually, increase. And then these are the people who are removed, who are discharged from the hospital. Gradually, the people who are hospitalized in this shelter hospital, they decrease by just less than 2 weeks. By February 22nd, that number start to decrease, and you have more and more vacant beds. By this time, everyone is discharged. So just barely in 1 month, February 6th, this is in Wuhan. At that time, tens of thousands of people were infected, and in 1 month's time, they are completely cured and then discharged. Some of them are moved to. By this time, they can be moved to the real hospital. The heavy people with strong symptoms, they can be moved to the proper hospitals. Okay. So let me conclude that I think when we talk about political system, when we talk about China's political system, we often forget that the Chinese ideas about politics, the fundamental beliefs, they are very important, but we often overlook. We often look at, because it has only one party, so it must be a very repressive, non-open, authoritarian government. I think that's very wrong. I live in the United States. I study political science in the United States. I compare different political systems. I believe to understand how politics in China works, we have to take China's political ideas seriously. And then in terms of operational parts, it combines national and local rigors through line and block mechanics. And when you have a giant crisis, the upper level government ensure you have enough mobilization and enough commitment, and that will lead to results. I will stop here. Muchas gracias.
Thanks a lot, Professor Wang. It's a very interesting exposition about the China political system and how it is responding to some crises, especially the latest COVID-19 problem that have allowed China to be the country whose economy is growing again because the pandemic is mostly under control. Well, we have some questions, but first we're going to give the floor to comments by two members of our centers. First, Juan Diego Zamudio, please, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Professor Aquino. Thank you, Professor Wang.
Hi.
Nice to meet you again. We met
Hello, Juan.
in Shanghai.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, Professor. So interesting, Professor. I would like to comment that yes, China is so far away. Difference between in China and in Wuhan, no? How they can block the virus, the spread of the virus in different countries, in different cities near to Wuhan. I think it's why the structure of the government and the politics of the China, also the community, no? The community, the companies. I think was totally different because the manufacturing is different in China. I think in contrast to Peru or Latin America countries, they can respond more fastly, no, more efficiently. But I think in January, in my personal case, no, I was noticed by one professor in Wuhan that they need some help, no, and with a few group of a few people of Peru, we sent some mask, no, to Wuhan. So, but I think we sent a few masks than in comparison to China sent to us now when we have the crisis. No? So I would like to comment. My final comment is to why China is now can manage that crisis or giant crisis that described Professor Wang is the structure, no, the political decision, and how the government can take the crisis or the challenge, no, for different parts. For example, no, the poverty, no, is amazing, no, how they can drop the poverty from to 2000 and now who I think the main difference of in Peru is that we can't do that so easily, no. But I think using the words and experience of Professor Wang, yes, we can take these best practices and to spread like a think tank in Peru, and we can learn about that. So thank you, Professor Wang. This is my final call. 谢谢.
Okay, thanks, Juan Diego. Then we have Professor or Ambassador Juan Carlos Capuñay. He has been ambassador to China and other countries in Asia. Ambassador Juan Carlos, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Professor Juan. Nice to meet you. Your Spanish is very good. My chungo to 一点点 to 我是Juan Carlos Capuñay. 我是米罗大奇. That's the only thing I know to say my name and to say my position.
Thank you.
What I would like to say is that when we talk about China's political system responding to a giant crisis, I would like to make some slight change in the title in order to give it more, a perspective, an international relation perspective, more than, a local perspective. If we talk about the Chinese political system and the China responsibility or China respond or answer to the international crisis, I think it would be very important to understand, first of all, about the evolution of China. Since 1921, July 1st, when the Chinese Communist Party was established, and July 23rd, when the first National Congress was opening, till 1949, when the Chinese Republic was established. 1978, the opening of China, the beginning of the opening of China, and then later on 2016, the last stage of this development, the development from inside, promoted by the President Xi. And I think that it could be very important to understand this whole evolution, this whole process, because that will give us sufficient elements to understand how China responds to the international crisis. When China was, when the Chinese Communist Party was established in 1921, China was a very poor country. Almost 70% of the population were, in the poverty, in extreme poverty. It was not an organized country like it is now. That you have explained. They didn't have any basic social services, and China was subject of a different occupation that affect its sovereignty. That's why the decision of the First National Congress were to fight the poverty, to promote the education, a good health system, to provide the housing system for the people, and to think about a national development project, both from the political and from the economic point of view. These principles or these ideas approved by the party in its first National Congress is still valid today, and is still, the main element of the national development of China. When you see about the Chinese evolution, it's, from my point of view, it's possible to see 4 stages of 4 different times. First, of course, 1949, the establishment of the Chinese Republic. 1966, the Cultural Revolution. 1978, the beginning of the reform. And 2012, what the President Xi called development from inside, development from a offer side, development to the demand and offer development. But besides of these main dates or reference dates, I think that it's also very important in order to understand the evolution of China, to mention about some of the main events, some of the main political events of China. I would like to mention the 11th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party in 1977. The third plenary in December 1978 was the opening, or was the beginning of the opening of China, was the beginning of the reform. China confirmed, or the Congress confirmed, the unity of the Republic, what you mentioned, the importance of the unity in the functioning of China. The Congress in 1977 confirmed also the interaction between the party and the Republic. Today, you cannot understand the evolution and development of China if you don't understand the evolution and development of the party. Both of them go together. The Republic reflects the evolution and the development in the thinking of the party. The Congress also in 1977 approved the main line of the strategic framework for the economic and political reform. Those days is in 1978. It's the very famous word, the very famous say of Deng Xiaoping, that when he mentioned that it is important for the nation, or it's important for the Republic to promote a better understanding. Doesn't matter which color is the cat. The main thing is that the cat has to know how to catch, the mouse. That's reflect, the changing in that moment of the thinking of the Republic. And also, if we would like to understand today, the capacity of or the structure of the answer of China to any international crisis, it will be important to see that during this evolution there are four main thinking or four main ideas or doctrines that they will have to be understood. First of all, the original one, the Mao doctrine, the Mao thinking, that was in 1921. Then 1970s, the then belief or the opening. Then later on, you mentioned, the importance of Jiang Zemin, the president. I remember when I was in China for the first time, as a diplomat in 1994. I remember I read in the newspaper that they used to describe the president Jiang Zemin as, as the leader of the 5 Cs, because he has to represent, or he represented the whole China. And that's why his proposal of the triple representative represent, the most comprehensive approach to the development of China. And then later on in the 21st century, we have the, the Xi Jinping doctrine or Xi Jinping thinking. As as the result of this interaction between the party and the Republic, I think that all the decisions of the different national congress that you have mentioned, they are the best guarantee of the respect of the decision of the government and of the party. And it also is the base for the commitment that they will implement it, all the decisions. And you can see even today, when you talk about the anti-corruption measure, you can see the total the total commitment of the people to implement the decisions of the Congress. I was very impressed when I was in China my last time in the year 2014, when I was as an ambassador there, is how how committed are the people with all the decisions that they have adopted. So today, the international committed or the international community confront a very difficult time. It is what I call the 21st century challenge, or the 21st century scenario as a result of this changing. And these challenges are basically because of the anti-globalization or deglobalization process that countries want to promote. Then the policies against integration, trying to promote or diminish the interdependence between the countries. The increase of the development gap, in particular, the digital gap, the political and social instability. There are new kind of conflicts, domestic and international conflicts. Some of them reflect the ideological intolerance or the ideological confrontations among different groups. The climate change and the risk in terms of food security and water security. It is said by the World Bank that by the year 2035, there will not be, well, in the case of Peru, in our case, Latin America, there will not be sufficiency, snow in the mountains to provide water for the rivers. And then the Latin American people will have to decide at that moment how to use the water for food, for agriculture, or for energy. But for the three of them will be quite difficult. And this is said by the World Bank. I hope it will not happen in 2035. I hope it will happen 2080 or 2060, but it's too close to 2035. And then also another important element in this new scenario, it is not a challenge, but it could be an opportunity, is the new development emerging nation, the new business partner, mainly emerging economic country. I will say BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, China, and India. You know that mostly of the loans to the first world countries now are provided by the BRICS nation. The largest creditor of the US economy is China. US is in debt with China. So what China has done in order to face this scenario is to approve a number of decisions through let's say two main bodies or two main instruments of the 21st century. One is the 13th quinquennial plan, and then the 18th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party, between before 2012. And when they were talking about the 13th the 13th quinquennial plan, China will talk it again about the eradication of the poverty. But now it's not 70% anymore. Now it's 5%. And it is supposed to be zero by the year 2021, when the end of the quinquennial plan. To promote the middle class as the main tool for the development. Today, China has 500 million people as part of the middle class, which is remarkable of this middle class is the number of them that travel every year. The number of tourists in 2018-2019 were between 120 to 130 million of people traveling overseas. And those tourists are tourists with a very high level of expenses. They are not backpack like the Western tourists. They are working. They are working people. There is organized groups, and they go mainly, of course, enjoying, but mainly to shopping. That's one of the main purpose of the tourists in China. And then that they will try to increase and maybe the double the main economic magnitude or main economic a dimension of China. Let's say the personal income or the national growth. Then we have the 19th National Congress of the Chinese Communist Party. That is, in my opinion, the key element in trying to understand the modernization of the modern China. The 19th Congress identified certain priority areas which are the same, in some way, the same that exist when the party was established at the first National Congress in July 23, 1921. It is, they were talking about a better education, but now they were talking about what the United Nations called the 21st century citizen. Those students who are, fluent or well prepared in science and technology and in language. As a result, today, mostly of the Chinese students are, sufficiently prepared, are sufficiently qualified to, to apply and to be admitted in any international university. Then, the poverty alleviation or the fight against poverty. This is, another area of the priorities. Then anti-corruption and transparency. Then, social inclusion and productive inclusion through the support to the small and medium enterprises. But introducing, innovation and new kind of technology. President Xi mentioned in China during the Congress that China will not be the factory of the world anymore. China will be the lab of innovation and new technology. And he preached a call to the small and medium enterprise to join the private sector of China and go overseas, take partners in overseas. But take partners not only to go and invest, but also to promote the bilateral economic relation between China and those countries. That's why at the same time, for the first time in the world, an import international fair was created. Now it's functioning in Shanghai. It is not an export international fair, it's an import. The exporter goes to China to present the products for Chinese people to buy. They also create a special fair for services because they know that it's not the factory anymore. Now China can provide services. China can provide new technologies. And also new models for the trade were introduced by the Congress. B2B, B2C will be the center for the new kind of trade. And today, because of the COVID, it is, B2B and B2C is more important than before. And also, the Congress reaffirmed the importance of the connectivity and integration. Basis on the 2013 proposal of President Xi of Belt Road Initiative, right? The One Belt, One Road Initiative proposed in Turkmenistan in 2013. It is important because BRI is a comprehensive concept. It is not a single model to follow. It has into account the needs and the priorities of the countries that are part of this initiative. It is, it is a way how China opened and how China is trying to contribute to solve this international, crisis. And also, they confirm the importance of the special economic zone established for the first time by Deng Xiaoping in 1991 in Shenzhen, and creating what they call now the coastal economic zone in order to connect the coastal city with overseas. And I think from my point of view, or from point of view of Peru, there is another project that related to this economic zone, which is very important for us. It is the great, is the area of the Great Bay Initiative. The Great Bay Initiative is Hong Kong, Macau, Guangzhou. Peru has the largest Chinese descendant, population, Chinese descendant in Latin America. And I have read once that it is the second one in the world. Most of them are from this area, from Canton, from Macau from Hong Kong. I hope this great area initiative will promote a second migration to Peru. But this time will have to be innovation migration, new technology migration, investment migration, because the people migration is already took place in 1847, 1849. But now perhaps, with the new technologies, the new kind of relation will be different. And, what is impressed of this, of that project I visited in 2018 is the Zhuhai Bridge. The Zhuhai Bridge started in Zhuhai City and goes to Hong Kong and to Macau in 1 hour. If you go by train, it will take 5 hours. If you talk by, you have to go by train and boat. It will take 5 hours. Now you can go the 3 cities in just 1 hour, which is, incredible and remarkable. The Belt and Road Initiative indicates, is based on the, a connectivity, physical connectivity that, made it possible, the train between China and United Kingdom, and made possible, the economic corridor with Pakistan and the other countries of Central Asia. But in the case of Latin America, we have to think about the, some kind of a digital bridge or digital Silk Road that will connect that with China and Asia. China has also shown its support to the international forums, to the multilateral forums, against the proposals to diminish the multilateral fora and to promote the unilateral attitude. That's why China promote or support the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, the United Nations, the Human Rights Commission of the United Nations, where China was elected the last week as a member of the commission. And then also China is promoting the relation with other countries, with Peru and with other countries through different, through different bilateral mechanisms. Through the FTA, today China is the first trade partner of Peru. The level of trade in 2019 was 23 billion in comparison with the 16 billion that is the second trade partner. I mean, it's a very big difference. I mean, it is also China is a very important investor in the different areas or different sectors of Peru and other countries. We have the category of strategic comprehensive strategic partner with China. We have also the Strategic and Economic Dialogue Committee, and we have our bilateral plan of action, 2016, 2021. That is almost the same time, the same lapse of time of the, a quinquennial plan of China, 1621. It is with respect to the, to the structural scenario, to the, structural challenges of the international scenario. But we have to see also the short-term, the conjunctural, the short-term problems, and it is about related to the COVID-19. And what I would like to say is that thanks to China, the COVID didn't spread worldwide. If China will not be reacting at the right time, at the right way, maybe this pandemic will be, this pandemic will be all over the world because China closed, as you said, closed Wuhan. China closed the different areas around Wuhan, and they were able to, to capture the virus, and they were able to fight the, the pandemic. I think that when we talk about the political structure of China, the economic structure of China, vis-a-vis the giant crisis, we have to see that at the international level, the different decision of the Chinese Communist Party through the 16, 18, 19 National Congress are the basis for the answer to this crisis, and that's help to the to the whole world to find a solution to this crisis, and including unilateral initiative of China, like for example in the case of Latin America, we have the CELAC, the China CELAC, China Latin American Forum. In 2012, the Prime Minister Wen Jiabao came to Latin America, and he visited the site of the Latin America Economic Committee, and he extended the most generous contribution or most generous offer of contribution that have ever Latin America received. There were $10 billion for industrial development, for infrastructure, $5 billion for industrial development, plus the creation of a food security stock of $500 million. This proposal of Wen Jiabao were later on increased by the Prime Minister Li Keqiang when he visited Latin America 2015, and later on and then also he he made the proposal of the a 3x3, 3 sectors, 3 answers. And later the President Xi, when he visited Peru in 2016 and visited Latin America because of the APEC summit, he made another proposal of for what he called the Latin American Plan of Action, with different project, different proposal for the Latin American development. I think that what I was trying to say is that the capacity that China, the political capacity or political structure that China has in order to answer the international crisis is the result of the evolution of the republic, the result of the evolution of the Chinese Communist Party, and it is oriented of what the President Xi called when he made his proposal, is that to build a shared future, or to build a future of shared development, to share the result of the development in the future. He even said, when the economy of China will get will get better, the whole world will get better. And we are seeing the results because of the investment, because of the trade with China. Thank you very much. This is what I was trying to say.
Thanks, Ambassador Capuñal.
Thank
you. Well, Professor Wang, as you probably have seen in the chat, we have several questions. I will read for you so all of us can know it. First, we have from Miguel Delfin. He asked, good morning, Professor Wang Zhengxu. COVID-19 changing the world. In Peru, the main problem our political system is corruption and the lack of meritocracy. Informality is approximately 80% and impact our market. What do you recommend to overcome these problems? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Professor Aquino. And thank Juan and Ambassador Company for their comments. I enjoyed them, especially Ambassador gave a very comprehensive review of China's development and China's relation with the world and with Latin America. I think I actually I agree with everything you said. I think you are very you have done very good work studying China. I hope I have chance to study more how things are happening in Peru and happening between Peru and China. Then this question by Miguel, what does it mean informality? Informality meaning
of the economy. People who work without paying, for example, taxes. We have
right
pension system.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I'd like to take up what Ambassador Company mentioned, this evolution. I think the way China can deal with Wuhan crisis is partly because China has, from 1978, China has traveled a very long distance in terms of developing the economy, in terms of the economic, technological, medical capacity. This last 40 years, China's capacity in terms of maintaining an economic, maintaining a healthy economy, in terms of responding to crisis, have increased dramatically. Had this been in, let's say, 2004, China had SARS, it would have been different. This year, because you know, after 2004, the public health system, mostly I think it's the economic capacity in terms of medical production of medical supply, in terms of constructing hospitals, in terms of delivering the living goods and so on. So I have to say we are lucky this time because there are important capacities that's already there. So looking at Peru, it kind of, in some aspect, it kind of reminded me of China, say, when I was young in China, living in a little county town in China. The economy cannot employ everyone. Many people didn't have jobs, or many people have jobs but we have very low pay. So it will take time. It will take time for you to build an economic foundation and then gradually upgrade your economy, and then more people can be involved in the formal economic sectors. And what Ambassador Company was saying is we hope China can be of some support in terms of bringing investment to Peru, in terms of increasing trade between Peru and China. Maybe I just move on to the other question is about how to deal with pandemic in Peru. Like I said, I really believe the shelter hospital is very important. Is that if you build a large number of shelter hospitals and you try to collect everyone that is infected and keep them in the hospital for 14 days also, they will be cured and they can leave. Then no one is left at large to infect other people. Okay, thank you. We can go to the next question.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there are two questions. Well, there are three. I will read the two together. Okay. He said, "Good morning, Professor Wang. Thank you for your kind lecture. What do you think is the main challenge to the legitimacy of the Chinese Communist Party today?" And then I will read another. "Meritocracy focus on the selection of leaders, not on how power is exercised. Even assuming that the selection of leaders follow a meritocracy pattern in China, which is a highly contested claim, will not the unconstrained power led to systematic abuse. How can society cope when they are being abused by the government other than going to a higher level of government? First, this two.
Okay, thank you. The first question is by Daniel Lamas, who is a friend of mine. He visited Fudan. So greetings. Hi, Daniel. The challenge to the legitimacy, I think the Communist Party has to continue to perform, continue to deliver good results in economic, in social welfare of people, in building better cities, in promoting China's people's living standard. So that's the main challenge. It has to continue to perform, to deliver. Then it's also related to the following question. The following question is that I talk about meritocracy, but this Roberto Londo. His question is if you have power, but power is unconstrained. I think many people, I think, of course, the challenge for China is how to make sure government does not abuse power. That's for sure. But when I respond to Daniel, I say the party has to continue to perform. That includes that the party has to continue to emphasize clean government, uncorrupt government, try to reduce bad behaviors by government officials. So that's part of the challenge. If part of the performance of the party, that means it has to maintain its integrity. It has to maintain its ability to curb corruption. Then to Roberto Rondo's question is, in general, I think it's a misunderstanding that power in China is unconstrained. I think that's a misconception. The party and the government has very clear rules to prevent government employees, prevent officials, prevent politicians from abusing power. So we shouldn't say because they're just one party, so the party is unconstrained. I think that's wrong. That's a misunderstanding. The party has its own rules and its own agencies to supervise government officials, supervise politicians. So when you have government abuses, they will be held accountable. Although they are people, you do have government officials who really behave badly. Some people probably don't get caught every time, but in general, I think people in China are happy regarding the level of government effort of fighting corruption, preventing government abuses of power. Thank you.
And this will be the last one of the same Roberto Rondon. He has, China's response to crisis is really impressive. The political system can mobilize society as a whole toward a goal in a very effective manner. However, there seems to be several problems that sometimes arise by those mass mobilization campaigns. For example, duplication of effort, corruption, waste of resource. How the system can better deal with the problem of efficiency, as opposed to just effectiveness?
Okay, thank you, Roberto. This is a very good question. I will give you an example in terms of what you mean. Let's say duplication of efforts, or sometimes you overdo. Let's say in terms of this controlling pandemic, from from February, every one of us, like myself include, every day I have to report to my university my body temperature. Every day I have to do that. I have to, if I leave Shanghai, I have to report which city I'm going to. When I come back, I have to report. If I travel to a place where there is pandemic, I have to stay 14 days at home. So these efforts, for some time, we feel are too much. We feel, for the last 3 months, 4 months, China has been quite okay. Why is the university still so strict? And then just 2 days ago in Qingdao, suddenly they had about 8 cases, and we just don't know where they came from. Probably Qingdao is close to Korea, to Japan, so you have some imported cases that were not caught when they coming into China. So then you realize it is still useful to overdo something. But in general, I think you are right. This government, when it can mobilize society, sometimes there's the danger of overdoing. There's a danger of duplication. But I think the bottom line is the government can adjust. If we report, if people on the ground respond, and then the government can decide, let me say the government decision-making process always is open to voices from below. So voices and our demands, or when we say there's something is not right, or maybe we should change this rule, that voice will be transmitted. But whether the government follow this or change the certain rule will depend on government overall judgment. It will take into consideration many different criteria, inputs from different sources, and then it will decide whether it's time to move to a different set of tactics. So the bottom line is, it's not too rigid as many people think. The government system has the space to change and to respond.
Thanks, Professor Wang. Well, that's all the question. It is very late, really. We're very grateful, Professor, because I understand it's more than 11 p.m. in Shanghai. Thank you so much for being until late with us. Before finishing, just 2 questions. I remember all of you that this conference is recorded, and it has been transmitted online by the Facebook page of the Center of Asian Studies, so you can see it again. And also on November 6th, we're going to celebrate the 2nd anniversary of the creation of the Center of Asian Studies, and we're inviting you to that event. Of course, we're going to publish the detail later in our Facebook, and I will going to send you, all of you, an email remembering that, okay? So thanks again, Professor. We're really very happy to have you. I remember years ago when you were here in Peru. I hope when everything is over, this pandemic, we can have you here, or I can visit Shanghai again.
Sure. Yes. Okay. Okay. So buenos días, everyone, and hasta luego.
Bye bye.
Gracias a todos. Estamos en contacto. Cuídense mucho.
Gracias, Carlos. Chao.
No, gracias, Juan Carlos. Gracias, Juan Diego.
Gracias, doctor. Gracias.